Trigger warning. This podcast will be discussing sensitive topics such as sexual assault, abuse, childhood trauma, and murder. If you are sensitive to any of these topics, please leave the room or turn off the audio.
Hi, I'm Rachel Rodriguez. I'm here back with your podcast, Murder Baddies. I'm your host. Today's podcast episode is called El Hombre de la Broma. I'm here today with my two co-hosts. We're going to be talking about Jaime Osuna and a little bit about his mental health within our interviews.
Hey guys, I'm your second co-host. My name is Alejandro Arriaga, and welcome back to our podcast. I can't wait for this episode. It's going to be a scary one, so hold on to your pants because this is going to be really, really bad.
Hello, I'm your other co-host, Jose. And yeah, as Alejandro said, it's going to be a crazy story. So try not to get scared or freaked out. Hi guys, so today's episode is going to be about Jaime Osuna, a notorious killer from Bakersfield, California. And we're going to be talking about his two murders of Yvette Pena and his cellmate Luis Romero. And I'm going to pass it on to my co-host, Alejandro.
Right, so Jaime Osuna is best known for his notorious killings in Bakersfield, California. He violently killed his cellmate when he wasn't even supposed to have a cellmate, and we believe that this behavior stems all the way back from his childhood.
His life of crime began back when he was a young age at 7 years old, living with his mom and no father figure in the house, except of course his stepfather, who essayed him at a young age starting at 7 years old. Jaime Osuna started his notorious killing when he was 7 years old, putting the cat in the oven and also in the freezer.
In the oven? He really put his cat inside the oven and then the freezer. That is so bad. What makes a child want to do something like that? You know what I'm saying? Because, like...
Okay, that cat probably was being annoying and wanted to catch the hands. So, you know.
The only thing the cat caught was a little cold. Do you think having a bad life at home at a young age would affect the way that you want attention?
100%. Like with happiness, if that's all we know, we're only going to be happy. We're going to see the positive in life, right? Same with negative. If we're around an environment that's negative the entire time, that's all we're going to grow up knowing, right? So it'll be more common and more realistic that a lot of those behaviors that we will participate in as we're older may not always be the most positive because we're influenced at a young age by everything we see around us, right? Even before we start learning what's right or wrong, we don't know what's right or wrong, right? Because we see what our families do at home, we see what's around our environment, and we define that into our everyday life.
I love the response. It was very clear, and it is true, especially if you're around a negative environment at such a young age. I feel like it is so clear for you to be negative, because if you surround yourself with negative people, you're going to want to be negative, and you surround yourself with the correct and positive people, you're going to be in a more better way and a more positive path towards yourself in life.
Do you think, like, if Jaime would have had, like, one person, you know, like maybe a friend, like one good influence, that it would have impacted him enough to like not go down the path that he did?
Absolutely, right? I mean, when I think of my own life and I think of when I was in high school, you know, when I was young, when I was 14, 15, I didn't know anything about college. You know, to me, college wasn't a thing that I could achieve, right? We didn't have programs like Upward Bound when I was at the school that I was at when I was in high school. So I never thought that college was for me. So it wasn't until my senior year, you know, my English teacher told me, hey, have you thought about what you want your major to be? And I didn't even know what to respond because I didn't know what a major was. I didn't know how to answer the question, right? So if it wasn't for that one person that asked me that question and then taught me everything I needed to know, I probably would have never pursued an education right after high school. So whether it's something as drastic as, you know, a serial killer in this situation, or something as simple as education, I definitely think all it takes is one person to change the course of your path, or one decision to really change that. So I 100% truly believe that if there was one person that might have helped this individual in a more positive light, that the outcome might have been completely different than what it was throughout his life.
And going off about that, I think like the main reason why he like killed so many people was because he had a lot of mental issues and like childhood trauma. So I feel like he gave up on people trying to be there for him, that he just thought everyone was against him, so he was killing everyone. And I also thought maybe he targeted women more because he had resentment against women, like his mother.
As much as I agree, sometimes our past and everything that happens at a young age can affect us. I feel like just because that happened, like I've seen other stories about children who have gone through that same thing or even worse stuff, and they haven't gone out to kill people. And I feel like we should also remember that he doesn't need to justify his actions, because we know that the court already has justified his actions, sending him not to prison, sending him to another prison to get help. And I understand that he needs help, but he doesn't get justified for what he did. He killed 2 innocent people and probably even more. And so I feel like just because you had childhood trauma, a lot of people have that, and a lot of kids have. If we go back to the case with Gabriel Fernandez, that kid, he looked in the best perspective he could, in a positive perspective. You didn't see him killing at a young age. And I just feel like we don't need to justify his actions.
I feel like that is so true, and it shows how important like parents are to one's growing up or one's childhood. And it doesn't really have to be a parent, you know, sometimes it's teachers or like even a counselor or a friend, you know. So like I feel like schools, especially in like low income communities, 'cause, you know, Jaime was from like LA, you know, he grew up in the streets, you know, rough areas, and he didn't have the resources, you know. So I feel like it's so important for schools to come up with these things, you know. Like I was saying earlier, we're minors for a reason. We can't make our own decisions, you know, like our brains are not developed enough to where we can make rational decisions for ourselves. So I feel like even though this country is like very freedom based, you know, you have free will to do whatever you want, I think that it's very important to impose and push for conversations with younger kids and to open up, you know. You don't have to like force a kid to open up, but once you create an environment and a safe environment and let it known to be safe, I feel like it definitely helps with the kid to open up, and you know, kind of it could be therapeutic for them sometimes. So do you think like programs like Upward Bound could help out like kids who have at home issues? Because, you know, we speak to our counselors here and we tell them our issues, and even though like, you know, sometimes you guys don't like really like tell us like what to do, you do tell us like how to react and how to feel towards it, and we'll like, you know, you give us advice. So I feel like, do you believe like Upward Bound or programs like Upward Bound should definitely be more established, I guess, throughout the countries and more accessible to students and stuff?
100%. I definitely think if we could have these programs, you know, everywhere at every target high school, it would make a huge impact on these low-income communities. And I think one of the things that you are all doing a great job of is having this conversation about things that aren't always talked about, right? Because especially when we look at it through a cultural lens, right, a lot of the times within Hispanic, within Latinx culture, mental illness isn't talked about, right? A lot of us were looking up definitions of all of these mental illnesses that some of these cases had in them, right? A lot of us maybe don't even know what the symptoms or what, you know, the signs of those illnesses are, and it's important to start having those conversations because it shouldn't be a stigma, right? And I definitely think that you are all doing a great job of bringing awareness to that, and I think that's something that programs like this do a great job of, right? I think not necessarily pushing anything toward you, but making you all self-aware of why aren't we having these conversations, and maybe why should we, right? Why should we at this young age be paying attention to mental health or different actions that maybe are of concern to, you know, with certain people? So I definitely think that if we could have these everywhere at every students out more, and especially bring more self-awareness during a time where students like yourself need it the most.
When we were first starting to research this like topic, I think we just thought of it as a serial killer, but as we looked more into it, we saw that there was a deeper thing here, like about mental health in like the Latinx community or like Latin community, because it's not really talked about in our community. And I think it's like if he had gotten help, he could have not done all those bad things that he did. And what Rachel said, we don't need to justify what he did because of what happened in his life. He could have chose to be strong and like go past it and get the help, and that's like something that he needed to do.
I definitely agree with Jose and Mr. Barbosa. Definitely, I agree, especially in the Latinx community. I can definitely tell we don't talk about mental health a lot because we expect to be like these strong people, and just because you have mental illness, it doesn't mean that you aren't strong. And definitely with what Jose said, it's just you can't justify his actions. But we understand that. I remember coming into this case and thinking, oh, he's gonna be this regular serial killer, he just enjoyed killing. No, like, I looked in more into his case and I saw that it was more, and it started at a young age, and it started for a resentment. And I truly would want to know how he felt about this and why he started this. And I know that everything happened for a reason. So I know that this didn't just happen because, oh, he loves killing. He may say that to the judges and everyone, but this case is truly more than just that he loved killing. There was a bigger reason and outcome to this.
We're talking about something as drastic as murder. Like, this is definitely like a case where he can't be justified, like, even if he does get like diagnosed with a mental health issue, it's very important to help him in a sense, but also, make him know that he's being held accountable for his actions, because regardless, those are wrong. Murder is wrong. I feel like there could be a difference with like a mental health person, maybe, I don't know, like stealing, or like maybe like, some kids like get into fights too often. Like, kids fight because they feel like they need to defend themselves because they're afraid of like abuse. Maybe they've been abused and they want other kids to feel their pain. Like, that's different. But like, with murder, it is something that is known from as long as you can remember that it is not okay to do. So it's like very hard to imagine and very hard to think, like, what did this kid go through? Like, what makes him want to kill people? Because now when he's an adult, he claims like it's for fun. I enjoy it more than having intercourse. I enjoy it more than anything. Like, he gets a rush off of it, and it's just, like, something must like be really, really like wrong if he's enjoying murder, because it's not right. And it's not right, and like, as much as we like, mental health is real and mental health is so important, but like, when somebody is killing for fun, like, that's an issue that needs to be resolved. And if it is a mental health issue, like, because we don't know. I don't know. I've never really, we're not therapists, unfortunately we don't know what he could be going through. But if it's a mental health issue, like, that's something that needs to be studied more, especially from at a young age, because he got very traumatized.
With trauma, you could use it in very like a lot of ways, because some people use their trauma to help them build themselves up and get them in a higher place, but some people aren't that strong, like Jaime Osuna, who went down to kill people. So
I feel like it definitely, like, Jaime Osuna would have been strong enough. At the end of the day, it always comes down to who you're around and what your environment is. As sucky as that is, especially where, him being from a low income, rural neighborhood Latinx community where resources are not around him. So, we talk about how horrible his situation is, and it's like, it's so sad. It's weird to like feel sympathy for Killer, but like, it's not his fault. You know what I'm saying? Like, his dad like abused him, and like, it all starts from a very young age, and children, are very vulnerable, especially at 7 years old. Like, I still can't fathom, and I'm always gonna question it for like the 1000th time that I'm saying this. Like, what makes him like click that way? You know what I'm saying? It's sad that children are so easily, I guess you could say, like, affected by the things, and like, it's not surprising. Like, he went through some very tough times, but like, it's so important for people to be good, like, make sure that kids are doing well, and to make sure that this doesn't happen to another kid in Las Vegas or Oakland, California. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I feel like it always comes back to the environment and what the resources that he had.
To wrap up our second question, I'm going to be playing an audio right now about Jaime Osuna's voice to really get you guys going to be there and hear his voice and see kind of where his mentality was at. So we'll be right back to this. We are going to be sharing Jaime Osuna's voice. Viewers description.
Interesting. It's
Now to pass it on to Francisco Barbosa to give us his opinion on Jaime Osuna's voice.
Yeah, I don't really know what to respond to that. I think hearing that was very intense, and it sounds like something you would hear out of a horror movie, not actually a real life person that existed outside in this world. I definitely think it's hard for people to listen to, but I also think there's a lot of conversation that can come from having these uncomfortable listenings or from listening or researching some of these uncomfortable topics. Again, I think what you all are doing is super important and bringing more awareness to why aren't these things being talked about, right? Because before this interview, I had no idea who Jaime Osuna was, right? So I definitely think that although hearing what this person really sounded like and, kind of what they thought of their own actions is uncomfortable and at some points pretty intense, I think it's important that we're listening to it because it gives us a whole picture, right? And I think you guys are doing a really well job of bringing awareness to the entire picture, not just the voice, but everything that came with this person. So it's a hard listen for sure, but definitely thankful that we're having these discussions because it's only going to bring about good instead of the bad.
So like that was like weird, in the audio he shows no resent, no regret, no like just nothing but happiness, excitement, and like the wanting to do it again. He said it twice. If I could do it again, I would. If I could do it again, I would. That's all he wants to do. So it's like it's scary, because it's like how did he turn this way? It's again, that's the only way I can think about it. So like he's so numb to violence. He's so numb and he's been so accustomed to violence since he was young. For as long as we can remember, he's probably been being violent. I don't really remember much from when I was 5, 6. Seven's where your memories really start coming in, where you really start remembering, at least for me. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely very, like, you can tell something's off when you hear his voice, when he speaks about how he just doesn't regret anything and he will do it all over again. So I definitely feel like hearing that and seeing him is very changes your perspective on, like, this man really is like has issues and it's sad, but like Jesus.
And I think what's more scary is the lack of humanity that he has. He, like, obviously doesn't care that he has killed these people, and even in a case like in court, he was laughing and like smiling and waving at the family of the person that he killed, which is very like creepy to me. I'm pass it on to Rachel.
To get back on it, yeah, it was true that in the Yvette Pena case, he was laughing at the family, and I truly think that Jaime doesn't just do this because he loves killing, as he says. I truly think that he does it for the attention, for the fame that he wants to. He wants the attention that he didn't receive at a young age, and that's just my opinion. As much as the doctors say, and the therapist he's gone to says that he has unspecified schizophrenia spectrum, antisocial personality disorder, and borderline personality disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder, and the list goes on. But I truly think he does this just for the attention and everything, because I feel he puts on a different face and a different personality for the court.
Co-hosts and I set out a survey regarding questions that involve behaviors that serial killers and murderers have. And our first question, we asked, does blood make you weak? 71.7% said no, 15.1% said yes, 13.2% said maybe. The average of that question was 17.6. Our second question, we asked the surveyors to pick an animal, because murderers and serial killers usually show a pattern of harming animals. So we just wanted to ask what animals they pick. Not that they'd kill them, but you know, you know what I'm saying. 37.7 chose dog, 34% chose panda, 7.5% chose a bunny, and the average for that was 41.9%. For our third question, we asked the surveyors, where do you find your peace and happiness? 54.7% chose friends, 11.3% chose shows and movies, 9.4% chose pain and suffering, and the rest of the 9.4% chose food. The average for that question was 11.2.
For our last question, we asked the surveyors, how highly do you think yourself on a scale of 1 to 5? For 1, only 1% picked 1, which was 1.9%. For 2, 15.1%, or 8 people chose 2. For 3, 41.5%, or 22 people chose 3. For 4, 24.5%, and 23 people chose 4. And for 5, 17%, or 9 people chose 5.
We would also like to give our sources where we got most of our information from. We used Coron4.com. It's a news website. Look up Jaime Osuna, Bakersfield Cold-Blooded Killer. Another news site that we use is Newsweek.com. I'll look up Satanis's Jaime Osuna beheaded Liz Romero.
Thank you for tuning in to our first episode of
Murder Baddies! Tune in next time where it's going to be a crazy episode.
Where we dive deeper into his crimes.